Lae'zel's actually already reached 2 generations in class changes since our last video. This is the first generation of it. First off, the great weapon fighting will be consistent among her skills. It's a favorite pick for fighters. When you roll 1 or 2 on a damage die while using a 2-handed weapon in melee, you can re-roll that 1. I have worded it differently than the description because I've also tried using this with Karlach, throwing a melee weapon, such as a pike that is 2-handed, and you don't get to re-roll those die. So that's fine. So this is only while in melee. We're going to drop her strength down to 8. And then with those extra spare points, we'll go ahead and raise her constitution to 14. We'll raise her intelligence to 16. Although she is not going to be an Eldritch Knight, we'll still leverage that intelligence to do extra damage. And then bolster her wisdom to 12 for wisdom saves. The primary saves that at least I assume or think that we want to focus on for protection is dexterity saves, constitution saves, and wisdom saves. Although I'm aware that she's using heavy armor and cannot benefit from the armor class bonus of high dexterity, there's 2 reasons why I have such high dexterity for all of our characters. 1, by keeping their dexterity more uniform, they all have 16 dexterity, I can move them as needed. Maybe I'll have Lae'zel try to swing and knock someone down, and if they don't get knocked down, then I can actually switch over to Karlach real quick and knock him down. Minthara, before that, she had very low dexterity, so in the episodes prior to this, she was often moving very last and could not position herself into an optimal way to use her abilities. So even though I may have built her a certain way, she was never really able to leverage it because her initiative was so poor. Secondly, since dexterity saves are a huge chunk of avoiding battle damage, such as fireball or lightning, those are dexterity saves. This can help out with that. Finally, for her skills, we decided history and perception. That may seem very weird, but realistically, I just want perception and might as well be history. If we needed someone to roll for it, she does have decent intelligence. Not many of our characters are going to have high intelligence, so it could be her. The reason why we didn't go for acrobatics is she's going to use her Githyanki Astro Knowledge and just turn that into dexterity. So all these 3 will just have her skill proficiency. Putting that in acrobatics then is just wasted. So history and perception. Level 2 is a quiet level. We'll get Action Surge, which is a very popular 2-level dip for many players. I'm not that sold on Action Surge, only because I typically don't rest. That being said, if you didn't run around with a full party of 10, yeah, you probably would benefit from more resting. Remember that my needs will be different than the normal players because the way we're organizing things. And I do like running with a full party. For race skill, she will get Githyanki Psionic's Jump, and we'll be leveraging that later on through her levels. For her subclass, we'll get Battlemaster. Although we have high intelligence, we are not going Eldritch Knight here. For maneuver, one thing I am changing is we're not going to take Sweeping Attack. I'll go and take it now just to show you what the damage value is, but we'll be right back to this. So we'll compare Sweeping Attack with Trip Attack. Okay, I'm going to hit Accept, and we're going to pop out of the level up. Tran is set up to be our target dummy. A normal Trip Attack is going to be 22 to 39. Remember that she does have her Cloud Giant Strength Potion. Okay, but that is a large amount of damage, yes? However, her Sweep Attack is 1 to 8. Let's see if this is actually what it truly is, or if that's just a miss value on the tooltip. I put that there because we needed something we could hit, since it will not hit teammates. Ithbank was hit. Damage roll, 1d8 slashing. Yeah, it does not count for her strength modifier. It does not count her weapon. It's just a flat 1d8. Don't bother with it. Whereas Trip Attack, on the other hand, yeah, that's quite a bit of a difference. Let's go ahead and level up again. What maneuvers are we going to walk away with? We will be taking Disarming Attack, because I love taking weapons from people. Riposte, since that is an extra attack that you could do provided you're in front of the enemy and they choose to attack you. And then Trip Attack. One thing to note is that some of her abilities will target different saves. For example, Menacing Attack will cause the enemy to need to roll a Wisdom save or be frightened, whereas a Trip Attack is a Strength save. I'm picking things in the event that you're trying to level up as you play, so maybe that you're level 3 and you need to figure out what 3 skills you want. These are the 3 I would recommend. Disarming, Riposte, and Trip. Then we're going to take Savage Attacker for our first feat. Great Weapon Master, mathematically wise, especially at higher levels, does more damage to Savage Attacker. But at low levels, you probably just want to hit something. It may not have that many hit points. It might just be like 12 or something. You just want to hit it and so it will die. At level 5 is another quiet level. We'll get extra attack. In addition to that, we also get the racial ability Misty Step. She's got 2 ways to move to an enemy. We'll leverage that into a feat later. So with extra attack, that's the big bonus. That's the cutoff point for many level ups. For a fighter or any of those martial classes, you get 2 attacks per round. At level 6 is our second feat as a fighter. It's a more of an exciting level. And we're going to go ahead and take the Great Weapon Master. We're going to do 10 extra damage at a cost of a -5 penalty. Is it -5 penalty or 5 penalty? I think you just say a 5 penalty is what you do. Because a double negative is a positive, right? Anyway, so we'll get a 5 penalty. And we can always turn that on or off. Make sure you remember to do that when you're trying to hit something for sure. However, just in case, maybe you want to hit something for sure and still hit it hard. Then we'll get Precision Attack. The cool thing about this ability is you can use it before battle. This is your next weapon attack. You can just use it as you're walking around, and then on your first swing in a battle, you hit him very hard. And then we'll go and take Menacing Strike because it is a wisdom save, and having more options in her toolkit is a good thing. Fighters are already very limited in some of their options as it is. For our 8th level, we'll get the chance to get another feat. And this time, I don't know if we'll ever get to use this, but we'll take Mage Slayer. So if we are positioned ourselves in front of a wizard, or sorcerer, or whatever, a spellcasting class, they cast anything. Number 1, if they do target Lae'zel, she'll have an advantage on saving throw. As a Githyanki, she might have items equipped to her that give the enemy penalties or damage if she passes a saving throw. Number 2, she'll get to immediately do a reaction attack against the attacker, or against the caster. So she might just be at a one-shot any wizard that is foolish enough to cast next to her. Finally, any enemy she hits will have disadvantage on concentration saving throws. I did learn how concentration saving throws are made. It is a DC 10 or half of the damage value rounded down, whichever is higher. So if the enemy has hit you for 21 damage, it's still a DC 10. If the enemy has hit you for 22 damage, it's a DC 11. When you combine this with her high-hitting weapon, Great Weapon Mastery and all that stuff, people are probably going to fail any spell they're concentrating on if they haven't died outright. So use that with Misty Step or Githyanki Psionic's Jump. She'll always be in the enemy's face. For level 9, we get Indomitable, which allows her to pass saving throws more easily. Excellent. Works well with everything we've set up so far. Level 10, we get 2 more maneuvers, and a subclass feature of Improved Combat Superiority, making our dice level 10 instead of level 8, or D10, that is. We're going to get Pushing Attack and Rally. I don't know if I'll ever use Rally, but it is there as a bonus action. Maybe it'll come in handy. Chances are she'll just throw a healing potion, but who knows? We might be able to find some use for it. Level 11, we get Improved Extra Attack. Now she gets to attack 3 times per action. And finally, for level 12, we'll get another feat, and you might have wondered, why did I have Dexterity 15? Well, that's so that we can get Athlete plus 1 dex. Athlete allows us to jump 50% further, and she will have insane jumping distance because of her 27 strength, thanks to her Cloud Giant Elixir. So, yeah. Now we have rounded out that dexterity to an even number. Next, we have Karlach. Again, we're going to start out as a rogue, giving her more skill bonuses and expertise than she would if she classed into rogue later. Knowing what I now know about acrobatics and athletics, we're just going to prioritize athletics, since she's going to be a Hulk with her strength. Because we're leveraging so heavily into strength and using elixirs, we don't actually need to put any points. So, like with Lae'zel, we'll drop this down to 8. Make sure that we have 16 dexterity. Put those points into Constitution, and then with the remaining 7 points, we can spend them on Intelligence and Wisdom. She will end up using Charisma as her item-based DC, which I learned a little bit about. Some players may already know that when you are a specific class, your item DC, such as using a Scroll of Polymorph, will be based on that class's spellcasting power. Each of these classes has a spellcasting attribute, Barbarian being Charisma, fighter being intelligence, rogue being intelligence, and monk being wisdom. And then everything else should be self-explanatory. However, every time you add a new class to your character, your spellcasting for items, or your DC for items, is based on that last class. What this means is if we are a Cleric 3, then we became a Wizard 1, then we added more levels than Cleric, your intelligence is still your DC because that was the last added class. That is what some people know. Here's what I don't know if anybody is aware of yet. Your fighter and rogue actually is not intelligence. I think the game just defaults to intelligence as you create them for your single class character. Yes, Eldritch Knight and Arcane Trickster are intelligence based, but I did try this. If you were a monk, your item DC is wisdom, and then if you became a fighter, your item DC is still wisdom. Now, if you then became Eldritch Knight during this process, it would change to intelligence. It's weird, but that is something. Her ending will be charisma, and we might want to dump Constitution to get charisma, but that'll be something that we consider in the future should we spend more time reclassing. As for her skills, now that I know that having acrobatics is not as important for a strength-based character, we're not even going to have that. We go stealth, investigation, insight, and perception. A bunch of points in perception. Previously, I had acrobatics and expertise in acrobatics. As with most classes, the level 2 is just a quiet level up. Yeah, we get some important abilities, but there's no choices we need to make. For her rogue level 3, we are going to decide on being a thief so she can get an extra enraged throw. She also gets Legacy, Avernus, Searing Smite, which is only melee based. Now we're going to change to Barbarian, and this will change your item DC to Charisma at this point. We'll get Unarmored Defense. She does have high Constitution, but at the moment we have her geared out in the Armor of Agility. If we did change our mind, though, and gave her some sort of clothing item, such as her old Bull's Strength armor or clothing, it would give her back some armor class. Her second level of Barbarian, no options we need to pick, but we get Danger Sense, gives us advantage on saving throws, and look at that. She has not only high dexterity score, but she also has proficiency from being a rogue. She will probably not get hurt by fierce spells such as Fireball and Lightning. And then Reckless Attack, which is only started with a melee action, but once you do it, you'll have advantage on attack rolls for any further attacks during that turn, including something like throwing. Alright, what do we get for our subclass? Same as before, we're going for Berserker so that we can get Enraged Throw. Okay. Then we get our first feat, and of course it's going to be Tavern Brawler. We'll go ahead and put in a point in Constitution here, since we don't need to put any points into Strength because of the elixirs. We'll get extra attack and fast movement here. Fast movement only applying if we do not have heavy armor on. Then we take our last class change of the setup here, and that is Fighter. And here's the kicker. We're going for dueling. This is why I know that great weapon fighting does not apply to thrown weapons of melee. I tried these out using Tran as our target dummy. Dueling will give her an additional 2 damage, provided she is still holding a weapon. So whatever she has in her equipment slots at the time the thrown weapon makes contact, that is what applies. So if she's holding a second weapon and she throws one weapon, the game thinks, oh, you have one weapon in one hand and nothing in your other hand. Okay, take the extra 2 damage. Alright, Fighter level 2, another quiet level. Fighter level 3, we're going for Champion. Normally I would use Eldritch Knight here, but one of our other characters, Shadowheart in particular, is going to become an Eldritch Knight, and at least in the version of the game I have, you can have that Eldritch Knight bind the weapon and then pass it over to Karlach, and Karlach will still get the weapon to return to her. If you don't wish to do that, or you can't do that because of game versions or whatever, then yeah, go ahead and make her an Eldritch Knight. But this will give her improved critical hit. And finally, For our feat, we're going for dual wielder so we can make best usage of our dueling fighting style. Ability improvement strength won't matter to us since we will be using elixirs. We need to be in a battle to apply the haven't taken a turn yet, which is what most of your fights will be. So throwing it at Tran in the middle of camp doesn't count for this. Now we'll throw... Oh, thanks, Karlach. Let's try that again. Alright, you see that we get the Ambusher's Streak, or the necrotic damage, from her main hand weapon. And it has fallen, the bound weapon has returned to her offhand. What about the dueling? If we see here, +2 dueling right there. So we've managed to squeak out an extra 1d6 +2. Awesome. Oh, and also I did manage to get her to only offhand a hand crossbow, but you can't actually fire doing it. Even if I click it, nothing happened. So we will need to give her an actual bow in the first hand. Alright, next character. Next up is Astarion. We're going with this stat distribution since he'll be using an elixir of bloodlust and not one of strength. However, that being said, a case could be made for the Titan string bow, which adds double your strength value when you hit somebody with it. Because we have modded the game to allow... There we go. It wasn't letting me spin him. Because we modded the game to allow me to equip Watcher crossbows, yeah, he's going to be using that instead. So we don't need the strength. Again, this is one of the things that make my gameplay a little bit different. So this build might not really work optimally for you. However, you can just dump the wisdom for that. We're going for high wisdom since his final class item DC will be wisdom based. This gives him something to work on. As for skill distribution, we're going for a sleight of hand and stealth for all the major thievery. Level 2 rogue is a quiet level for us, but I do want to take a moment to point out his gloves. These are not optimal gloves for him. These are the garroting gloves. I tried to make them hot pink, but that's not a color available to us, so yeah, that's what we've got. For level 3, we will be going Assassin, which gives us several bonuses on an Alpha Strike. Alpha Strike being a terminology used when you want to do as much damage as possible on the very first salvo. Assassin's Alacrity gives us action and bonus action replenishment. Since we're not using hand crossbows, we probably won't get to use the bonus action replenishment. We'll get to do a critical hit against any surprise creature and have advantage on creatures that haven't moved yet. We're going to go hop over to Ranger for 5 levels. Favorite enemy, we'll actually switch things up to Bounty Hunter, though if you wish to wear heavy armor, go with Ranger Knight. Bounty Hunter, in conjunction with our high dexterity so that we can hit an enemy, and high wisdom score to raise our spell save DC, this will cause the enemy to have a disadvantage on their strength saving throw. I don't know if we'll ever use it, but it is an option. As for Natural Explorer, we'll go ahead and hit Wasteland Wanderer Fire for the fire resistance. And then for our abilities, we're going to take Survival, give us the best chance of passing that check, if Sarah never needs to do it. At Ranger level 2, we want to make sure to stop over to Fighting Style and pick Archery, but before that, we're going to take Ensnaring Strike and Hunter's Mark. For whatever reason, you don't get Ensnaring Strike as a spell automatically when you take the Ranger favorite enemy. I feel like you should. I feel like they should just give you that. But maybe that's an actual D&D rule. For Fighting Style, yeah, Archery it is. Ranger level 3, it's important for us to take the subclass Gloom Stalker. This will give us a +3 initiative, a mostly useless for us movement speed +3 meters, but most importantly, it gives us an extra attack that deals an extra 1d8 damage. We'll take Feat Sharpshooter for our level 4 Ranger. And then we'll top things off with Pass Without Trace. Don't know if we'll ever need it, but I don't really see him using these spells when a full team of 10. Again, if you were a team of 4, maybe you'd want something like Silence. This will be the last level up we do in Ranger. Now we'll switch over to Fighter with a Fighting Style defense. I can do this because it is going to be Wisdom based off of the information I gave you about the whole Karlach thing, and I'll show you that in a second. Fire to level 2, as usual, it gives us nothing but action surge, so we'll move on. Level 3, we'll switch out to champion, making it easier to critically hit. And then for feat, we'll take ability improvement dexterity +2. We can see that his last level is in fighter, but we'll go and use this scroll of polymorph to show you that Tran succeeded on a saving throw against polymorph. This is his DC. This is Astarion's spell save DC. It's 8 plus his wisdom score. He had a wisdom of 16, plus his proficiency. And then Tran had to also pass his wisdom save. This is Astarion's attack DC, and this is Tran's defense DC. Yes, it is wisdom, even though his last level was fighter. If the game ever changes that in the patch, then just take fighter's level second and ranger's levels last. We'll go ahead and take fighting style, defense. So she's going Spirit Guardian again. We broke away from that last time because I didn't want to rely on it overly much, but at this point, since our party is so large, if she gets a chance to do it, she might as well. And this is the stat allocation that seems pretty solid if you aren't using elixirs, but we will go ahead and apply them. As a rare change of pace, we'll have a character that doesn't have the +1 bonus into dexterity. Let's go ahead and add the points into constitution and wisdom. Get that wisdom as high as possible, up to 16. Her skill allocation is going to be athletics and perception. Again, with her strength potion, that means her athletics will be the highest version between athletics and acrobatics. The reason why we went fighters to start off with is 2 classes have constitution proficiency. That'd be sorcerer and fighter. And most of the builds I had up to this point were typically she started out as a sorcerer. That's why she was casting all these other wizardly spells. And I just figured, you know what, we'll just make it fighter and see how that pans out. This is where we become an Eldritch Knight, and she can then bind Karlach's weapon for her. That isn't the sole reason she's an Eldritch Knight. It's just a bonus. I had originally made Karlach an Eldritch Knight, and then I was building Shadowheart. I thought, you know what? Since Shadowheart's an Eldritch Knight, I'll just convert Karlach to a champion. As for her spells, cantrips, whatever you want to pick. In this case, we're going to take Dancing Lights and Minor Illusion, since she's never going to attack people with those cantrips. For spells, Magic Missile and Shield are always solid options, since you never have to memorize or pick these spells. They're just always available. And Magic Missile is a pretty solid spell. Expanded repertoire. For our Eldritch Knights, you are limited to 2 schools. It's Evocation and Abjuration. Expanded allows you to pick other variant. In this case, we will be taking Enhanced Leap. That, combined with her Strength Potion, will make her able to jump super far. There's an interesting thing, which I don't know if is intentional, but when we're replacing spells moving forward, we can actually apply them to the expanded school. Alright, so let's take a look at our spells. We'll take Mage Armor just for now. Alright, you can see that this is all we have to pick from. Okay, but if we were to replace a skill, say Shield, which we're not going to replace, we can actually pick anything from here, even though Shield was part of the regular spell slot. Let's not actually cancel that. In the next level, we will be getting rid of Mage Armor. Alright, we're going to take Athlete and Dexterity, making her an even 16. For level 5, let's go ahead and pull out Mage Armor. And pop in Fog Cloud, which is a level 1 spell. Because I intend to make her hop around and move around the battlefield, she doesn't need to see the enemy to swing. And if she does swing, she has extra attack. She's going to have high strength. She's actually going to contribute some other damage besides Spirit Guardian. Now, if you're playing along and you aren't level 12, then I would put 1 level in Fighter for the Constitution proficiency, and then 5 levels in Cleric. Let's go and switch out to Cleric at this time. And for our domain, we're going to go with Light Domain. This will allow us to cast Warding Flare if necessary. Use your reaction to impose disadvantage on an attacker. And since she is a Cleric of Selûne at this time, it says Shar, but we went with the Selûne choice in the game. But since she is a Cleric of Selûne, that kind of makes sense in an in-universe way. We'll go over Sacred Flame, Resistance, and Guidance. We'll get Blade Ward in a little bit here, but these are spells that she can use to just help out the party if you are level 2 at this time. Again, there'll be 1 fighter, and then next is Cleric, if you are leveling along with us. At Cleric level 2, she gets our first Divinity charge. We'll just go ahead and skip on through this. At Cleric level 3, she gets a couple subclass spells. Again, we're going to go ahead and skip on through that. And at Cleric level 4, she is one level away from casting Spirit Guardians, and now's the time where she might, if you were playing along, be getting into the middle of the battle. So we'll go and get Blade Ward beforehand, and for our feat, we will get Warcaster. Now, I have tried to calculate what's better, Warcaster or Resilient, and I'll go and show you a spreadsheet at the end of this, but because she already has Constitution Proficiency, Resilient will not help her. It doesn't just add points to it, up to your blanket saving throw. What it actually does is, let's see here, Resilient, it increases ability by 1. Okay, so it could make my Constitution go from 15 to 16, sparing me 2 point by allocation system there, and give me proficiency in ability saving throw. She already has proficiency, so it's Warcaster for sure. And then her level 5 Cleric will make her a beast in battle thanks to her Spirit Guardians. Now we're going to go and switch to Monk to top things off. The whole reason we're going Monk is just so that we can have infinite jumps in battle. Well, not really infinite. You still have to pay the 3-meter movement. So every time you make a jump, it would cost you a bonus action and 3 meters of movement. However, with this, it only costs movement and no longer costs a bonus action. That's the whole reason we're going Monk. Among her gear setup, we've gone ahead and given her what should go on a Druid normally, the Boon of Raven Queen. We got this a long time ago. It will always give her Featherfall, meaning if she jumps from an impossibly high height to land on an enemy or something, it's okay, she'll be fine. Her ability to jump will not be hampered by potential damage. Additionally, Spirit Guardian still works while you're Dire Ravened, meaning she could fly around the battlefield with that, doing Spirit Guardian stuff. Let's go ahead and cast it. And if we wanted to jump, that's how far she can move. And she will never take falling damage, no matter how far she jumps anywhere. And then we could just fly on top of it. And yeah, that's the current setup. We'll see how that works out. Wyll is completely full of himself, and he always wants to be a hero, talking himself a great deal. So to that extent, we're going to let him use the Elixir of Heroism instead of Strength. Now, there's a couple reasons for this. First off, one of the reasons why his build was not pushing itself to 200%, maybe we'll say 170, 160% of a normal build, was I was trying to make him do too many different things. He would often swing his melee weapon in combat and be a decent bard, cast Eldritch Blast, and finally top it all off with the arcane acuity abilities to just lock down an enemy using command or hold person. We're going to go and take out the melee aspect entirely. And that's why he's not using the giant strength potions. Because ranged weapons, even if it's a regular bow, will be using dexterity as its attack roll rather than strength. I don't know why. I feel like melee would typically be dexterity and ranged weapons would typically be strength, but whatever. I didn't make D&D. So we're just going to go straight up archery this time. And he does so much better at hitting the enemies once we focus purely on that. With the Elixir of Heroism, that'll add a 1d4 to attack rolls. There's no Elixir of Dexterity, so we're going to go with this to improve his attack roll even further. All right, as for his skill set, yes, he is having Athletics and Acrobatics. In this case, having both of them is not a negative, since Athletics does help him shove if we end up not hitting anybody or don't have the ability to lock someone down, such as we don't have the spell slots. So he can still do something with his bonus action. And then Acrobatics is just to help him resist being shoved. If there were a more practical skill, we would have taken that over Athletics. There's a couple ways we can get the command spell. While we will be taking Bard and we can get that as magical secrets later on, he is a Warlock as a character in universe, so we'll go and just apply that here. Cantrips, of course, going to be Eldritch Blast and Blade Ward. He will stay with the Fiend since, Zariel and Mizora and all that. For spells, we want Command and Hex. We're going to prioritize spells he can cast as a bonus action, even if it's not the best spell in the game. For example, Armor of Agathis is a pretty solid spell, and we can cast that before battle. However, we're going to use the spell slots on locking down the enemy. So we'll just take Hex as a backup instead of a maxed out Armor of Agathis. Then we're going to go straight to Bard for the remaining levels. Instrument, of course, a violin for him. Cantrips. We'll take Vicious Mockery and Minor Illusion, both spells that he can cast as bonus action, which is going to be any enchantment and any illusion spell. But I guess you could, if you wanted to, turn an enemy so that your other allies can sneak up to the enemy and attack from hiding. So there is a value, but not a very big value. Spells. Here are the available spells that we can cast as a bonus action. We've got Dissonant Whispers, Heroism, Sleep, and Tasha's Laughter. All of these we can cast as a bonus action. Again, we're really leaning heavily into it. For abilities, we want to get Stealth. Our Wyll is currently wearing heavy armor, which means he won't be able to utilize that, but maybe we'll switch that out. Armor of Agility would be a pretty solid use for him, but we've already given that to Karlach at this time. Again, your mileage will vary since you probably aren't running a full party like that. For spells, we'll just take Bane. It's an enchantment spell, but don't worry, we won't be holding on to it for too long. Now we get Hold Person, which is an incredible spell, and we're definitely going with College of Swords with this guy. For fighting style, we'll go ahead and go Dueling, which will, even if he's using a shield, he'll go ahead and have 2 additional damage in melee. He should use the bow more often than not, but this gives him some benefit, whereas he's not going to do any 2-weapon fighting. Alright, replace spell. Let's go ahead and replace that Bane, and we'll add in Silence. At Bard level 4, we get our first feat. Now, for cantrips, I don't really know what to cast, so we'll use Dancing Lights, so that if you did have any items that give you concentration bonuses, such as psychic damage, or get you more hit points, you can just cast this and get an easy concentration. Then for spells, we're going to get Crown of Madness, because it is a spell we can cast as a bonus action. For our feat, we'll take Warcaster. Again, we don't have to worry about the Resilient versus Warcaster scenario for him, because he does have proficiency in Constitution already. This means that between his high Constitution, which is 14, I mean, it's not super high, but it's pretty good, his proficiency, and his advantage, he will have a very, very easy time succeeding at concentration saves. Of course, if an enemy hits him for 90 damage, it's probably going to go away if he's still alive. Alright, for level 5, we'll get Fear. I haven't used it in such a way yet, but because we can cast this as a bonus action, it seems like it could be very powerful in combination. I typically rely on Hold Person, though. At level 6, we have to pick between level 3 spells, and under normal circumstances, this would be an easy pick for us. However, we are trying to focus on only things that we can cast as bonus action. For better or worse, we're leaning heavily into it. So, Hypnotic Pattern it is. I have had a little bit of trouble getting Hypnotic Pattern to work in the right way, since whenever I have targeted an area, I can see it's going to affect my allies, so it hasn't worked out. But we can basically consider this a cheaper version of Confusion, and in that regard, it works out just fine. By level 8, we are running out of things to pick up. We'll take Calm Emotions. I don't know how many other options we'll have to get anything out of it, but at the very least, we can remove Frighten or stop an enemy from raging. As for our feats, we're going to Ability Improvement Charisma. This will increase our save DC by another 1 point, and give us a little something if we do decide to Eldritch Blast, which should no longer be his primary movement in battle. It should now be Slashing Flourish. Alright, Hold Monster is our order of the day here. This will work on pretty much anybody, but not as many people as Hold Person can lock down. For our final level up, completely run out of stuff, we'll do Mage Hand for utility, spells Dominate Person, and Magical Secrets. This one is the only spell that he has that isn't a bonus action, only because I want to be able to completely cripple an enemy if it's a super boss that wouldn't be stopped by Hold Person. And then Dominate Beast. What are we missing here? We need a skill. That's going to be Athletics and Perception. Although it looked like it was the same, Athletics is actually +8, with Acrobatics being +11. So Acrobatics will still be his defensive stat whenever he's being pushed, but he at least has a decent chance at pushing people around. So we mentioned that Confusion doesn't appear to target your allies as collateral damage. So while I haven't been able to utilize Hypnotic Pattern very much because it would hit so many of my teammates, as long as I consider a cheaper version of Confusion, it doesn't sound that bad. Everything besides Contagion, Eldritch Blast, and Mage Hand, those are spells that we immediately have bonus action on. And to top it all off, Wyll is carrying our spellbook, so he could just cast right out of it with bonus actions as well. With our large party of characters outputting such severe damage, normal wizard spells such as Haste or Fireball don't really play well here. I mean, if you have 10 characters and you can haste 2 of them, that's not as big of a difference between having 4 characters and hasting 2 of them. But we're going to continue making Gale the one-shot fits-all criteria. To start off with, we're going to make him a Cleric with the following cantrips: Sacred Flame, Resistance, and Blade Ward. Sacred Flame, in general, when you cast this, you can pretty much expect to waste your action. For our domain, it's going to be Tempest, with Mistra as our deity, though that's really just flavor. And finally, this is our stat distribution. You'll note that we have 15 Constitution, but we always manage to even it out. With our high Charisma, you can surmise that we won't be staying Cleric for long. Our following choices are between Religion, Insight, Medicine, and Persuasion. Okay, Insight and Medicine it is. We'll go to level 2 Cleric just to get the Channel Divinity option, which means that 1 time per short rest, maximum damage. And Lightning typically has a very large dice roll, such as 1d12 or something like that. And now we're done with Cleric, we'll go and switch over to Sorcerer. For our cantrips, we'll just take all of the attack spells. Although he does this yellow border means that he knows it. He knows it because of his wizard scribing. He's never going to be able to cast it because I'm not taking levels in wizard. So I can ignore this yellow box. You won't have that on yours necessarily. And Minor Illusion, just so we can group up enemies if necessary. For our spells, while I did mention Magic Missile and Shield are good choices, for this particular build, we're going to go with Witch Bolt and Magic Missile. Now, there is something I want to point out. He will be doing severe lightning damage. So you would think we would take Draconic Bloodline and say blue for lightning. Then we wouldn't have to spend that point on Witch Bolt, right? Actually, what we're going to do is we're going to make him a hybrid, and maybe this will turn out not to really work all that well. We'll give him White Cold, so he can cast Armor of Agathis. He's not going to rely on the high-level spell slots like Wyll does, because he'll be casting something low like Witch Bolt. The reason why Witch Bolt is our pick is because it has an attack roll to land a hit, and spells with an attack roll can critically hit. So we pair him up with Wyll, who can hold people. Gale just needs to step in close and cast a Witch Bolt, and that guy takes tons of damage. So we'll cast a high-level Armor of Agathis. And we can only get that with our current setup by being a white dragon. You may say, well, Tran, that's kind of cutting yourself off out of lightning damage. At level 6 Sorcerer, you get your Charisma added to your lightning spell. If he's doing, we'll say, 206 odd damage or something, adding +3 damage, maybe +4, is nothing. I'd rather just have the Armor of Agathis. It's going to make the enemy less likely to hit them, and if it does, that enemy will pay the price. Alright, we still have choices pending, and that's because we did end up briefly selecting the blue dragon. Even though we can still pick Witch Bolt as a valid spell, the game has trouble recognizing it, so we just need to remove and add a spell, and it'll be fine. I might change that later on, but for now, I'd rather have 2 very good spells rather than an extra +3 damage. Alright, spells. Now we're going to add Shield. For our passives, we take Careful and Twinned. Normally, you'd want to take Extended so you can cast your Haste spell. But again, hasting half of your party, that's good. Hasting 20% of your party, not as impressive. We'll take Careful spell beyond that. And this way we can cast Lightning without torching our whole party. We'll be doing a lot of replacement spells as we level up, Shatter being one of them. But this is a spell that we could utilize if we were playing a low-level game. If we were, let's say, in Act 1 or Act 2. For our class passive, we'll take Quicken Magic. At this level, we're going to go ahead and take a cantrip of Poison Spray. Just gives us more options. I don't think we'll ever use it. And we'll slap on Burning Hands. This is another spell we'll be quickly classing out. We'll take Feet, and this time we will be taking Resilient Constitution. In this case, Resilient will be better than Warcaster. And I'll show you my spreadsheet. I'll show you my spreadsheet math at the end of all of this. Alright, we are now Sorcerer level 5, meaning we can access level 3 spells. I don't know if we'll ever use it. Counterspell, everybody loves this spell, but our current party dynamic makes this less impressive since we could cancel it with illithid powers. And we're going to replace Shatter and just slap in Lightning. At level 6, we just have to pick a spell, but we can see that it would add our Charisma modifier as a result of being a cold dragon. That 3 lightning damage is not going to amount to much. So we'll take Sleet Storm. Again, we just needed to pick a spell, but for changing Outer's magic, we'll replace Burning Hands with Fireball. Burning Hands gave us a low-level option to do area damage. And with Careful Spell, you can cast that without worrying too much about your allies. At level 4, we'll go ahead and get Wall of Fire. Unfortunately, there's no lightning spells we can get at this level, and we'll replace Sleet Storm, which we got at level 3, for Ice Storm. As with most even-numbered levels, we are running out of spell selections. At this time, we'll go ahead and get Haste. And then for our feat, we'll take Dual Wielder. I know that's very strange for a wizard to be dual wielding, but this lets us use 2 different staves to have both effects, helping our wizard out. Level 9, we'll go and take Cloud Kill. I understand that we may want to take Cone of Code, but realistically, Cloud Kill, assuming battle lasts 2 rounds, this will do more damage. For our last level up, we'll take Cantrips, Acid Splash, Spell, Cone of Code, class passive. It's going to be Subtle Spell. Maybe Extended Spell, if you again, with the whole haste thing, but this gives us more options with our current party lineup, cast while silenced. One thing to note is that you can use Destructive Wrath or your Channel Divinity on scrolls. I'm doing a 48 to everything, right there. For ideal results, throw water or a steam cloud at your enemies beforehand. We've always had problems getting Halsin to keep up the pace with the rest of his teammates. His teammates will say, we'll do 150% additional power to compare to a straight up level. Well, whereas Halsin, he might be 130%. In this last iteration, he was a powerful code wizard with extreme armor of Agatha's potential. Enemies just wouldn't target him, though, because there's 7 other people on the battlefield. I went with Armor of Agathis because I wanted him to have something that he could use while he is a bear. Well, I figured out another thing he could do while he's a bear, or whatever it is he's going to be. We'll start off as a druid, and for his cantrips, just because they're distinct to druids, we'll take Thorn Whip and Shillelagh, I don't know. Probably not the last one. As for his skills, it's going to be Nature and Medicine because druid. As far as his stat allocation goes, if we are morphing him, his strength, dexterity, and constitution will not matter that much, so you could dump everything into intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. However, he still will have value as a humanoid, so we've left it as is. For our subclass, we will go Circle of the Moon, and if you did wish to follow along with this build, it didn't have to be Halsin. I would stop after Druid 2 and then go Cleric 2, and then put the rest in Druid. But for the sake of just telling you how we're building Halsin, we'll go Druid until level 10, and then Cleric 2. At level 3, we don't have any options we need to pick, so we'll just hit Accept. And at level 4, we get our first feat, as well as having to pick a cantrip. A good cantrip is, of course, Guidance, and maybe you want to pick that over Thorn Whip or Shillelagh if you did need a low-level Cleric. Alright, for our feats, we will go with Tavern Brawler Constitution, bringing us to an odd number, but we'll sort that out in a minute. Remember that Strength and Constitution will not take effect as your human, or not human, half-elf variant once you've shape-shifted into a bear, a spider, or whatever. However, you do get these bonuses that says your Strength modifier is added twice to the damage and attack rolls. You will get that as your shapeshift, which is why we're taking it. Level 5 Druid, nothing that we need to make choices on, but we do get Wild Strike, allowing us to have a second attack while shapeshifted. His elixir is very likely to be the Elixir of Bloodlust, since in elf form he'll be using magic, and in animal form he'll have its own natural strength. For level 6, no choices we need to make, hit Accept. He does get Primal Strike, which allows him to hit enemies that require magical damage. Level 7, no choices to make, hit Accept. Druid's pretty easy, isn't it? At level 8, we get Resilient. Again, refer to my Resilient versus Warcaster at the end of the video if you are interested in the straight up math, but we'll take Resilient Constitution in this case, bring us to an even 16. Level 9, nothing for us to do. We hit accept again. Then level 10, we get the almighty change. We get to pick another cantrip. Really, the reason we went to level 10 Druid was so we can try these things out, these Myrmidon shapes. There's also the dinosaur shape. As a class feature, we get 2 attacks, or 2 additional attacks, so 3 attacks total when shape shifted. So we'll take Poison Spray just to give us options. And now we'll switch over to Cleric. Again, if you were playing along and you needed something lower level, I would just do Druid 2, Cleric 2, and then the rest in Druid. Alright, for our Cleric cantrips, realistically, Sacred Flame is just if you want to waste your action for that turn, cast it. But we'll go ahead and take it with us since he does have decent Wisdom score. And we want Resistance and Blade Ward. For our subclass, we will stay as Life Domain. Nature Domain would be good for a Druid, but for the purposes of what we're building towards, we'll consider Nature is Life in this case. Now, there is no Sylvanas god here that you can pick. I don't know if Sylvanas is a god. We will take Corellian Larethian as a second god. He provides blessings to those who study art, magic, and nature, and he oversees the Elven Pantheon. Yeah, that works. There's nothing we need to worry about spells. We'll hit accept. And then at level 2, that's where most people end their cleric journeys. He gets the ability to channel divinity and do preserve life. Channel divinity is something you get per short rest, so we'll be able to do this each short rest. What's the game plan here? I mean, we'll just cast this, and you get the traditional, all the bonuses happen if you have the equipment, such as Blade Ward happens to everybody as long as he's wearing the Hellrider's Pride. That's nothing major. The interesting gimmick that I've come up with for this is Healing Incense Aura, which is an attribute you get for having the Divine Intervention weapon. Have one of your level 10 clerics, whether it's a hireling or permanent Illithid companion, cast Divine Intervention and get a weapon, which will come with Healing Incense Aura, which lasts for 10 turns. This is a healing ability, and he'll get all these bonuses, such as 3 additional temporary hit points. When you heal another creature gains resistance, you get all those bonuses with it. And then we could Shapeshift, which will get the hit point bonus, but will not apply Blade Ward because it's an item. We can consider this the difference between Halsin the Elf with better defense abilities and Halsin the Animal with better offensive abilities. We will be able to pick and choose our combat style as needed in battle here, so we don't necessarily have to see it as a weakness. As the only lore-based Paladin, I think that's what you'd call it, in-universe Paladin, she's going to be the Paladin Warlock build we've been aiming for since the beginning of the game, and while she was that in the previous iteration, her dexterity was so low, maybe 12 or 10, where when her turn came up, she was never in position to do anything. If there were enemies nearby, they would have already been defeated by the other 6 companions that went before her, or whatever would happen. So yeah, we're going to go ahead and even out that dexterity, and in turn, she's going to rely on strength potions to keep her attack power up. Oath of Vengeance, because Minthara, there are her stats right here. As for her skills, athletics, and intimidation, she's going to be a dual-wielding crit paladin. Paladins do not get the fighting style 2-weapon fighting. They do get defense, however, and we will branch into fighter later, so we won't miss out on that. Level 3, we really don't get anything special. We do get Divine Health, which is alright. At level 4, we get to pick our first feat, and we're going to pick Dual Wielder so that she can use this hammer that we had found in the Underdark, I believe it was. When we critically hit an enemy, it and nearby opponents can go prone. It's not a core component of this build. I just like it. I just like knocking enemies flat on their back, so we'll take Dual Wielder. You can't see the hammer right now because she does not have it equipped. Since reclassing, she lost her Dual Wielder feat. Level 5 is where we stop. We get extra attack, and then we're done with Paladin. Because of what I mentioned about Fighter, we'll take Fighter last, only because I try to build these characters in a way that they're more viable at early levels, whether or not you are playing along and are just leveling your character as you get the experience, or maybe we run into some enemy that can de-level you, such as a wight or something. I don't think anything like that exists in Baldur's Gate, but I do prepare for it. So we'll go ahead and go for a Warlock at this point. But other choices could have been a fighter. We could have gone fighter and then warlock. I will say that if the game ever patches to make fighter always use intelligence, then go fighter second, warlock last. But with warlock then fighter, we still will use charisma based item DC. Okay, cantrips. Eldritch Blast and Blade Ward. The Great Old One. This is Cthulhu. This is not Zariel and Mizora. This is Cthulhu's based stuff. As for her spells, we're going to take Armor of Agathis and Expeditious Retreat. This is a spell that we can easily cast well before battle, just at any point, and she'll get that concentration bonus with her equipment. And the rest of her spells can be spent on Divine Strike, so none of it is wasted. Warlock level 2. For spells, we're going to take Hex, and then for Eldritch Invocation, we'll take Agonizing Blast and Devil's Sight. As a Drow, she does get to cast Darkness as a racial ability. Warlock level 3, we'll take Hellish Rebuke, since we can now pump this at a level 2 casting, but we'll probably use that for our Divine Smite. Still, it's available there. For Pact Boon, we'll take Pact of the Blade. From what I understand, I think Pact of the Blade is considered the loser pact in tabletop, but in Baldur's Gate, this seems to be the one everybody likes. Cantrips. Bone Shell, just to give us more options, and then Detect Thoughts to give us a concentration spell that is a ritual. Finally, for feat, we will take Savage Attacker. There's no Great Weapon Master here for us because we are going dual wielding. At Warlock level 5, if you are in Tactician or below, meaning the first 3 difficulty levels that came with the game, then we can now attack 3 times in melee. For our spell, we'll take Bestow Curse. Let's see, there it is. And then Eldritch Repelling Blast. The reason why we can do 3 times attack is the Deepened Pact. Blade Pact owners gain an extra attack in addition to our Paladin extra attack. That's 3. On Heroic mode, you don't get that. Alright, now we'll switch over to the last 2 levels of Fighter. In the current patch of the game I'm running, Intelligence will not be my item DC, it will still be Charisma, even though we are ending on Fighter. For our fighting style, we'll take 2 weapon fighting. Finally, and then Minthara is done. And we can see here that she has ended as a fighter, and we'll just test this out. Polymorph. And because the class before this was a Warlock, it is Charisma-based attack, spell save DC. And of course, this is Tran's Wisdom Protection or Wisdom Saving Throw. For this build, I'm just going to go and point out that we will be starting as a rogue, but if you are low level and you're trying to build towards this, I would start out as a monk up to level 3 where you get your subclass, then go to Druid till you get your subclass, then the rest in monk. But for our level 12 variant, we will be starting as rogue. We'll go ahead and have the following skill proficiencies. We get expertise in athletics and perception, and the rest in stealth, investigation, insight for just regular proficiencies. For our stat distribution, we will be relying on the Elixir of Cloud Giant Strength to pump this way up, and our Constitution is 15. We will, of course, raise that with Tavern Brawler. Rogue level 2, nice quiet level. We just hit accept. Rogue level 3, the whole reason we went rogue is realistically for the Thief subclass. This allows us to have an extra additional bonus action, which in most cases is a smaller, less valuable action than the regular green button action. But for a monk, it's more damage. It's way more damage. For our next class, we'll go ahead and switch over to monk. It accepts till we get to the subclass, and of course we will take Way of the Open Hand. I did toy with the idea of going with Way of the 4 Elements to go into the whole Druid aspect of casting stuff, but I looked at the spells and they just seem so lame. Ice Knife, Ray of Frost. You got to remember that this is not just a replacement, it's an inferior replacement with a limited action point. At level 3 monk, you could cast this Ray of Frost 3 times. Yeah. So we'll go open hand. And this is where that bonus action comes into play, doing severe damage much more than a regular action would. Since we are leveling all the way to 12, we'll stay as a monk for now. Go to feat, and we'll take Tavern Brawler Constitution. We're going to ride Monk all the way up to level 7. At level 5, we get the extra attack. The reason why we're spending the rest of the levels in Monk is that we will get more key points so that we can continue to cast the Flurry of Blows. Keep leveling that up. Alright, we're going to stop at level 7. Now we're going to take Druid. For our 2 cantrips, it's going to be Thorn Whip and Produce Flame. The reason why we're going for Produce Flame is first, she's never going to use a staff. I mean, maybe because a monk can use staves. It's fine, staves. But realistically, I like Thorn Whip because, one, it has some use in battle. It can pull people around. And I can also hit enemies in Sanctuary with it. Produce Flame, in case we end up giving her the ring that allows her to do 2 extra damage to illuminated enemies. Maybe I just want to illuminate an enemy. Whatever the case is, this gives her that ability since she may not have an item in her hands that she can equip that will have light source. I have managed to glitch the game in letting her use an offhand weapon without a main hand weapon, so she does have a dagger there. But also, you might not be able to do that in your version of the game. They may patch that, who knows. Though I think it's ridiculous. You should be able to have a weapon in your left hand, even if you're right-handed. Alright, we don't need to worry about her spells, because you can prepare any spells you want as a divine-based character. And then, for Druid, we're taking Circle of Spores so that we can get Symbiotic Entity, adding an extra 1d6 necrotic damage. Let's take a look at how much damage we will be doing. The game lists her current attack value at 52 to 84, but realistically, we want to double that psychic damage. The reason for that is everybody that Jaheira walks near is going to be steeped in bliss, becoming vulnerable to psychic. Add an extra 4 to 7 on top of what you see here, for a total of 56 to 91 damage per bonus action, 2 bonus actions a turn. On screen now are some of my notes. On the top left panel, you'll see Gale when he rolls for regular concentration saving checks. If he is a warcaster, he has a 91% chance to succeed. If he is resilient, however, he has a 95% chance. Alright, and what if he gets hit pretty hard, like a 40 damage hit? Well, as a warcaster, he would have a 36% chance to succeed the concentration saving throw, and if he was resilient, he would have a 45% chance. Similarly, for Halsin in the second column, we still manage a 91% advantage for a warcaster, but resilient does drop down to 90%. This is because the difference between Gale and Halsin is, under Gale, I've managed to squeak out an extra 2 points of constitution when juggling the point buy system, and for Halsin, he's just going to have a flat constitution 16, since shapeshifting ignores physical stats. And on the bottom panel, if Halsin is struck for 40 damage, just like before, it's 36% with advantage warcaster or 40% with resilient. The evasive instinct +1 that Gale has, those are his bone spike boots, probably expected to be worn by barbarians. Well, Gale is one of the few people in my party that's not wearing armor, so to him it goes. On the right side is just my reference table for me to easily check the differences between advantage and disadvantage when compared to a normal roll. So if you have to beat a DC 10, you actually have a 55% chance to beat it. Why is it 55? Because 11 to 20 is 50%. If you roll a 10, you still succeed. That's 55%. Well, taking a look at DC 11 with the 50%, if you have an advantage, you have a 75% chance to succeed. That's how you would refer to that table right there. I've just about finished editing this section. It was originally going to go in the next episode, right after we finished the Sewers Shopkeeper, but since it is an hour long, after editing it down from 3 hours, following a script that I wrote beforehand, it will be its own episode. I don't know if watching these characters level up is interesting at all to anybody out there, maybe just hardcore mathematics and power gamers, but I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you very much for watching Tran Wins Baldur's Gate 3. I'll see you next time.